It's great to see you guys. I'm Megan, kind of the, I don't know, the hands behind the thing. And I feel like I've interacted with almost all of you in some way or another over the last few months. So just real quick, I was hoping to do a little bit of a survey, just to see who's who. So who's from UNC? Awesome, awesome. What about, is everybody else, other schools? University of Maryland? University of Virginia? NC State? Virginia Tech? You guys have a really cool event happening there right now, I think. Regional Grace Hopper or something? Sounds cool. I don't blame those who didn't come. But anyway, how many of you have been to a hackathon before? Okay, awesome. Well, for those of you who haven't, I'm really excited that this is your first one. We have some really great opportunities for you to learn some cool things and work with a lot of mentors. We had a huge response from people wanting to mentor. Over 50 mentors registered for this event, not including the recruiters who are also here because they want to talk to you and get to know you and offer you jobs. Yeah, how about all the recruiters? Do we have any of those in here still? Or did they go home? Okay, Fidelity's here on the front row. You should talk to them. They're awesome. Anyway, whether you've gone to tons of hackathons before, you've never been to one before, whether you've coded a lot or not, we have something for you, so I hope that you won't feel shy about asking anybody for help. Because all of us have to ask for help. I know for a fact that none of the mentors who are here have all the skills that I asked them if they had. None of them knew everything. So we could all learn something from somebody else here. Anyway, that's a lot to say. But I'm just really excited that you're here. I really hope that you'll go to more hackathons in the future as a way to learn and network and have a great community of support, because that was what got me to stay in computer science. The first year, I just, I didn't have any friends and it was hard and I didn't really like it that much. But, I found a community through events like this, and this is really what tech is all about. It's about collaboration and working together and learning new things. So I hope you'll learn and see that at ProHacks. So first of all, I want to really thank the computer science department and the journalism school. Both of them have been hugely, hugely supportive of this event. Like, a lot of hackathons have a lot of trouble with throwing events like this. We didn't have to pay for the buildings. We don't have to pay for the live stream. The woman running the live stream is actually a mentor. She wanted to come and hang out with us. So all of this equipment has been provided with us, and we want to take really good care of it so that they'll let us keep doing things like this. And then I also really want to thank the sponsoring companies. You met a lot of them out there, outside. I hope you enjoyed the fresh air. Hope it wasn't too hot. But anyway, so I just want to play this slideshow really quick to show you all the sponsors that we had. Give them a round of applause because they're awesome. We had a huge response from sponsoring companies. People that I had never heard of, people that I had never thought would want to talk to me about sponsoring anything. All of a sudden, and the reason why they were so excited was because of you guys. They wanted to meet you, they wanted to encourage you to be doing awesome things with technology. All these people would love to talk to you. All right, now, and last lastly, before we introduce the keynote speaker, I just have a really quick YouTube video that I want to share because I watched it in January and was like, we have to show this at ProHacks. So now you have to watch it because I say so. It's also just really awesome.
Mississippi, my prayer was, for as long as I can remember, God used me
that no matter what you guys work on this weekend, that it is what you really love. We should have opportunities for you to do visual design and make things with your hands and think things through, like puzzles and logic. Anything is out there. It's just a matter of finding your niche in technology. And right now, I want to introduce to you someone who has been a huge supporter of Pearl Hacks, a mentor to me and the other organizers, and just one of our biggest advocates over the last few months. Poornima Vijayashanker is she was a founding engineer at Mint.com, and she is now the founder of Femgineer, which is a startup educational company that works with professionals in the tech industry to give them career advice and inspire them to be their best. So, here's Poornima.
Thank you. Oh, can everyone hear me? Hopefully. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Megan, for the intro. And maybe some of you know that I am a Duke Blue Devil. So you're probably wondering, why the hell am I here, right? Well, obviously that goes to show you that I am willing to set aside the fact that we lost a few weeks ago and seriously get my butt over here to support all of you, because ultimately I think, supporting women in technology, in computing, and globally is important. So I'm not going to let a little thing like ages and ages of rivalry get in the way of me being present. And before I get started on my keynote, I actually really want to thank Megan and all the women here in the computing department. I met them back last semester when I was teaching at Duke, and I was just floored by how much they wanted to put this hackathon on, and they have just been working non-stop. I know Megan spent all of spring break working on this. So before we get started on my keynote, I just want to give Megan and all of her team a round of applause for putting this together. I know, she was a little bit nervous about hosting a hackathon just for women, and I said, no, do it. It doesn't matter. Hey, it could be the first hackathon that many women come out to, so for all of you first-timers, I think it's great, and I want you to realize that this might be a really unique opportunity, and not all hackathons are the same, but I'm going to encourage you, just like Megan did, to keep going even after this, but just know that this is the first, and there's probably even going to be another one next year here, so keep coming back. So, on to my keynote and to share a little bit about myself with you. So, I got a 19 on my first computer science midterm. And no, it wasn't a 19 out of a 20, it was a 19 out of 100. And no, I didn't get the highest grade in the class. I probably got the lowest grade in the class. And no, it wasn't because I didn't know how to code. In fact, I'd been playing with technology throughout my entire childhood. I learned how to type on a real typewriter, then I graduated to a PC. In middle school, I learned BASIC. And when I got to high school, I taught myself some HTML. But the reason that I had gotten a 19 on my first midterm, my freshman year, was because I put so much pressure on myself to perform that I was filled with self-doubt on the day of the exam, and despite all my studying, I just didn't feel prepared for it. And of course, I was terrified when I saw my grade, and I wondered how it would impact my GPA. So I did what any first semester freshman would do to save their GPA. I dropped the course. But I knew I wasn't a quitter, and I didn't want to start making this a habit. So the summer after my freshman year, I decided to stay on campus and retake the course. With no distractions, I was able to focus, and I ended up getting an A in the course and also learning that I really love to solve problems. So I ended up deciding to major in computer science. Then I had a crazy idea my junior year. I decided I wanted to learn even more. I wanted to know what made these machines. And so I decided that I wanted to also major in electrical engineering. But I only had 2 years left to graduate. The dean at my engineering school was really reluctant. She suggested that I stay and do a 5th year. But my parents didn't have the money to send me to college for a 5th year. I'd have to figure out how to make it happen on my own. So I was deciding, okay, how would I make this happen? How would I go from getting a 19 on my first midterm to graduating in 2 years with 2 degrees? And I also really, really needed to get a job right after graduation because my dad had lost his job my freshman year. So money was really tight. I wouldn't be able to go on to graduate school or just do whatever I wanted to. The good news is when you're 20, you have a couple things on your side. The first, an endless source of energy. Sometimes it's fueled by Red Bull, but you also have the chance to take a risk with little downside. So I overloaded on engineering courses, and while many of my peers were playing beer pong and partying, I was sitting in the basement coding on a Friday and Saturday night. And I managed to make Dean's List and graduate on time. So what? Well, obviously, if you're here at Pearl Hacks, then you're already committed. But it can be natural to get tempted when you face some setbacks. The message that I want to leave you with today is to do the things that are hard. No matter how incapable you may think you are, and despite whatever is going on around you, the chaos, the miscommunications, the misunderstandings, everything. Now, I don't mean choose an NP-complete problem, try to solve that. I mean pick problems that are going to challenge you, both intellectually and emotionally, and know that the harder the problem, the longer it's going to take to solve it. So don't expect results immediately, or even in a year, or even in 5 years, but know that they will eventually come. You'll have a breakthrough. But instead, focus this early moments of your life on making progress gradually. Love the breakthrough moments and hate the ones that make you feel like you've got a knot in your stomach. Use love and hate to be the barometer to gauge whether you're going to do the hardest thing and you're doing the hardest thing. Ambivalence being a sign that you've gone down an easy path. College, I thought it was a little strange that there weren't as many women as there were men in my engineering classes. But I had the same experience in high school when I was on the debate team. It was heavily dominated by boys. While most of my girlfriends in high school pursued other activities like sports and acting. So while I noticed it, I didn't pay too much attention to it. Instead, I chose to focus my efforts on graduating and starting my career. And as I entered college in 2000, the dot-com bubble had just burst. By the time I graduated in 2004, things hadn't improved much at all. There weren't many tech companies hiring. As a result, many of my friends, even those who I thought were amazing coders, had decided to take jobs in consulting. While I congratulated them, I knew that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in the tech capital of the world, Silicon Valley, and I wanted to build things. In what little spare time I had, I networked, prepared for interviews, and ultimately received a job offer as an R&D engineer. I moved out to Silicon Valley to start my dream. By sticking to engineering through college, I learned to do something that was really hard for me. And as you can imagine, I was a little tired after college. So for the first year after graduation, I worked a 9-to-5 job. Don't think that you can go full steam all the time. It's okay to take breaks periodically. As I began my career, I once again noticed that I was working with mostly men. This, of course, didn't bother me because I had gotten accustomed to it. But then I noticed that a number of the women on my team were leaving, including the ones with graduate degrees. Some of them left to pursue other careers and others to become full-time mothers. I thought maybe this was just a natural progression and wondered if I would end up going through the same experience at some point in my life. I began to reach out and spoke to these older women in both my company and other places. I started to uncover a more systematic problem. The women told me that they weren't getting promoted, or they didn't have the chance to work on projects that they wanted to, even after they had asked for them. Mismanagement was causing them to prematurely end their careers in tech. After the time, I didn't know what to do or how to help. After all, I had only been out of school for about a year. So I filed the problem away in my head and decided I would revisit it later. My second year out of school, I had refueled, and I was once again ready for a challenge. I felt like I didn't have enough experience to join a startup, but I was curious. Right around this time, my buddy from college, Aaron Patzer, told me that he had an idea. He was frustrated with money management software and wanted to help young, budget-conscious people with their finances. So we got to talking. At the time, he lived in Austin, Texas, and I convinced him that he really needed to move out to Silicon Valley where he would be able to meet a number of engineers and raise some capital. He took my advice and moved out. And while we were on a ski trip in Tahoe, we experienced one of those polar vortexes that I know you have all experienced here this winter. We got stuck on the highway for about 8 hours, and we started talking about Aaron's idea. And I asked him what he was going to call the company. And he said, Money Intelligence. Money Intelligence. That didn't sound like something young people were going to use. So he challenged me. He said, you come up with a better name. So I thought for a moment, and I smiled and said, what about Mint? And immediately Aaron loved the name, and we used it. After that point, I desperately wanted to work on Mint, but I was up to my eyeballs in student loans. I couldn't just leave my job, so I worked on it part-time. Then one day, my two managers came into my cubicle, and they said, follow us. So I did what I was told, and I followed them down into a conference room. They sat me down, and they said, your position has been impacted. And I thought, okay, what does that, did I get like hit by a meteor or something? No, they were laying me off. And they were giving me a 3-month severance package. I was a little baffled. I had just gotten a promotion, so I didn't know what I had done wrong. And what the heck is a severance package? Severance package was my safety net. And I had just been given a golden opportunity to go work at Mint. For the next couple months, I used my savings and built the prototype for Mint while Aaron went out and fundraised. Now you might be thinking, weren't you scared? Absolutely. But I believed in Aaron, the idea behind Mint, and myself. So I knew that somehow things would work out. After all, they had worked out in college somehow, right? I was the only woman engineer at Mint, which began to bother me. At least in college and my previous jobs, I had some women who were my coworkers. I tried to recruit other women, even my gal pals from college, but all of them had left engineering to become business consultants. Some who still were felt like they were going to have to put in really long hours and not have time for their families, friends, despite all my reassurances. They had a misconception about what it was like to work at a startup. So I once again noticed this systematic problem that was causing women to leave tech and realized that it was time to put my problem-solving skills to the test. Only this time I wasn't going to be building a software product. I began writing a blog called Femgineer. I titled it Femgineer because I wanted people to see it was cool to be a female and an engineer. At least I was hoping that I was someone women would think was cool. That was the primary purpose of Femgineer. The second purpose was to fulfill my own personal dream of being a writer. So I wrote about engineering and entrepreneurship. I continued to blog and build Mint for 3.5 years until it was acquired in 2009 by Intuit. And for the second time in my life, all the late nights and caffeine-induced coding sessions had paid off. Maybe it was momentum, or just not knowing any better, but I felt like I had to keep moving forward. I wanted a new challenge. I didn't want to be a founding engineer again, but I was wondering what it was that I was going to do next. When I was 6, my friend and I decided that we were going to be millionaires so that we could pay for college. Call us precocious, or maybe just conscious of the rising cost of college. We decided to start our first business, and our product would be to sell popcorn balls, because that was the one thing that we both knew how to make pretty well. Even though this was our first business, we knew that we had to go local before we could go global. So we walked around our neighborhood for about a week, going door to door and asking people if they would buy our popcorn balls. Guess how many popcorn balls we sold? 0. Close. 0. Turns out, as a 6-year-old, you lack a few things: vision, experience, drive. However, by the time I was 27, I had managed to acquire some of these traits in college and by working at Mint. So I decided to begin a new chapter. I wanted to transition from being an engineer to an entrepreneur. The first thing I needed was an idea. And at the time, I had been practicing yoga for about 6 years, and I noticed that there were a lot of studios that were experiencing the same problem. And I thought, why aren't they using software to get more customers and make their lives easier and grow their business? Turns out they were using some products, but most of the products just weren't that easy to use. They were too hard. They needed a simple solution. Well, I had learned how to build a simple solution at Mint, so I leveraged my learnings and started BusyBee. When you go from being an engineer to an entrepreneur, you're not really trading in one role for another. You're actually trading in one role for 3. And I wouldn't realize that until I had read Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth. In his book, Gerber says that being an entrepreneur means you have to play 3 roles. The first is a technical mind, someone who builds the initial product. The second is a manager who recruits people to then take over the product. And the third is a visionary, someone to lead the company. When I began BusyBee, I knew how to do the first, but I didn't know how to do the others. I had to learn, and as a first-time founder, I learned the hard way by making a number of mistakes, which was good because it really ingrained the learnings into me. And fortunately, I bounced back from my mistakes and kept moving forward. The other thing that I realized was that when you're a founder, you get to do things differently. And since BusyBee was my baby, I decided that I wanted to do what was really important to me, which was have a company that gave me a lot of freedom and flexibility. Those 2 things manifested themselves as me bootstrapping the business, building a self-sustaining product, and leading a remote team. My career, I've never had the thought that having 2 X chromosomes would somehow make me less capable than my male counterparts. But I know that there may be others who think this way, or think this way about me, so I just work a little bit harder. And that's also the reason why I continue to contribute to Femgineer as I built BusyBee and Mint. A few years after I'd been writing Femgineer, people would come up to me at parties and conferences. They'd tell me they had read my blog, they learned a lot, and they appreciated me writing and sharing my experiences. So this motivated me to keep writing. And over the past 7 years, the blog has grown in readership, and I've been invited to speak all over the world. About a year and a half ago, I was invited to speak on a panel alongside some pretty prominent women in tech. One of the topics that came up was, what are the challenges facing women in technology when it comes to starting a company, getting promoted, and working on a male-dominated team? I was actually quite shocked when a number of the women on the panel didn't openly share the hardships that they had endured. And they were actually pretty dismissive, citing that there were no problems. I guess they don't come from privileged backgrounds, or maybe they just didn't want to expose the industry or feel like they should make themselves vulnerable. Well, I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take the misunderstandings that were coming out. I didn't want another female colleague to leave. I didn't want another young woman deciding that she was either not smart enough to be an engineer or having a misconception that it was going to be too hard to even try. So I decided it was time to put Femgineer to the forefront. I started running a monthly event called the Femgineer Forum in San Francisco. The purpose of the Femgineer Forum is to address sensitive topics based on the 3 misses: mismanagement, misunderstandings, and miscommunication. I also wanted it to be a setting for people who couldn't find mentors to come in, or to meet mentors if they couldn't find people with time. The other key differentiator was to provide people with strategies that they could use and practice and then go back to their office or share with their community. Many of these strategies were based on experiences I had as well as others in building companies and products. Now, there are those who challenge the work that I'm doing at Femgineer, questioning the need to label and band women together. Well, the truth is that men and women face challenges in their careers. They're both plagued by the imposter syndrome. It's a condition that many highly accomplished people suffer from. They think that someone will think they're a fraud despite all their talents, skills, and accomplishments. The self-doubt it creates in their minds ultimately holds them back from taking on risks and challenges. And both men and women experience the imposter syndrome, but it's more prevalent amongst women, especially those who haven't received a lot of praise. If you're left wondering why there aren't more women in technology pursuing careers in STEM, part of the reason is the imposter syndrome. The other are the lack of awareness and education on the types of careers that are out there in tech, ongoing support for mothers, and of course, a lack of role models. Our society has also made it very acceptable for men to feel proud of their accomplishments and to speak up for what they want and need, while women have ideas and behaviors ingrained in their minds of being a nurturer. This gives them a strong sense of empathy, but it makes it really hard to negotiate for what they want and deserve. They take what they're given instead of asking for more, thinking that if they do, they'll be taking away from others. Breaking those habits takes a lot of time and concerted effort. So yes, there is a need to label and band together. Now, the goal of Femgineer is not to play the victim card. It's to provide people strategies to overcome them and succeed. And it shows because despite the title, we have men and women attendees who come and learn. In fact, most of our classes are about 50%. Some women have in fact complained saying, well, I didn't realize there were going to be so many guys in here. So it's great, and I want you men to keep showing up and keep supporting us, and we want to keep supporting you too. Since the beginning of 2013, Femgineer has gone from being a blog to a business. It's an education services company. And don't let the name fool you. Our vision is to obviously increase the number of women in technical leadership positions. But as I said before, we educate men and women who are tech professionals and entrepreneurs, because ultimately we all have to work together. We teach people how to build products and companies through courses in product development, communication, and leadership. Over the last year of being in business, we've had over 40 students from around the world graduate from our online courses, run 13 forums through which we've educated a number of women and men to leave situations where they were being undervalued and underappreciated and find the ones where their skills and talents were going to be valued. And we've mentored a number of tech professionals and helped them get raises and the promotions that they deserve. So it's great to see all that we've accomplished in the past year, and I know it's going to take some more time to make and enact change globally. But I like to do the hard things. So finally, I'll admit that yes, it's really hard to write code, and yes, it's really hard to be a woman in tech. But But doing the hard things in my life has certainly paid off. I've been given the opportunity to build amazing products, meet and mentor hundreds of engineers and entrepreneurs, and witness the brilliant work that comes out of students like all of you. So, as we kick off this weekend's hackathon, and even after it, I want you to continue to ask yourself, is what you're doing hard? Or are you holding yourself back based on mismanagement, misunderstandings, and miscommunications? Thank you.